Okay, we have our drawing, as you can see, and we are going to go ahead and use our chalk pastels to add in the color of our portrait. We are going to start by just looking at the skin tone of our portrait and look at our box of pastels. And as you can see, there's not a skin colored pastel here, so instead we're going to be blending a lot of our colors together to get the desired result. So we look here at her face and we start to think about, all right, what is the most common color I see here? And if I had to pick one, I would say, you might disagree, but we're just going to work with it, this kind of orangey yellow color. All right, so you're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm just going to start with a base coat of this color, because like I always say, with chalk pastels, it's always easier to blend colors when you have lots of pigment on your page. I always say you need more pigment, you need more pigment. So I'm just going to start. Don't worry about going over the pencil. We will add in our colors afterwards. And yes, right now she seems to have a really bad tan. Very fake. That's okay. Go over her chin. Go all the way down here, getting her neck, and that is most of her skin color. So this really is just a base of color to blend into. So from here, we're obviously going to say, all right, there's a lot of lighter areas and there are a lot of darker areas. So I'm just going to go back in and I'm going to use this kind of cream colored pastel, and I'm going to use that to sort of go over the orange. And as you can see already, that color is a lot more mellow. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to soften all of it. Feel free to go right into your neck as well. You're going to be adding some darks in there to get shadow, but there we go. Alright, she's very orange right now. It's okay. So start. Now if you start to have a lot of that buildup dust, please don't go and blow it. Okay, just tap it to the side. Okay, you can clean that up later. Alright, so I'm getting better, but I still have a lot more to go. So she's still very orange. I'm going to go in with some whites, and I'm actually going to add some pinks and browns. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for areas that are a little bit lighter, so these kind of highlight areas we call them, and I go in with my white and I actually see them here on her cheek. I see them definitely on her nose and on her other cheek. I'm not going to blend that in yet. I see a little bit below her chin and then a little bit above her lip. Usually there's also some right up top the eyebrows. Okay. Next, I'm going to go in, I haven't blended that yet, and I'm going to go in with this really soft pink. Okay, and this pink is going to blend really nicely with my white. So I'm going to go in, and like I was saying earlier, is don't be afraid of using your colors, because if it looks really dramatic and maybe really bad right now, it's a work in progress. So don't judge it before it is done. Okay, so I'm trying to warm up her skin tone a little bit. And now I'm going to look for some dark shadows, and for that I'm actually going to be using this brown. So where I see shadows right now are predominantly around her eyes, around her nose, right into here, okay, and definitely along her chin and on her neck. Okay, so because I see her neck as the darkest area right now, I'm just going to start with that. So I'm just going to go with my brown. I'm going to go right along this edge. Okay. She looks a little bit like a bearded woman right now. It's okay. And then I'm going to go in and I'm just going to blend that out, mixing it in with the orange underneath it. And what we're trying to do here is create form and depth. Okay. Already that's a little bit better. Tapping off that excess. Then I'm going to go back in. This brown is a little bit too dark for me, so I'm actually going to pick a lighter brown. I call this a warmer brown. And I'm going to use that for some of the shadows on the face. So I'm going to actually start in here with her eyes. Just putting marks wherever I see that there are shadows. And yep, she's going to look a little bit like a raccoon. That's okay. I see shadow over here. I'm going to add that in there. And then along her chin. Okay, then I see some framing her smile. Okay, and I'm going to put a little bit underneath her hairline here. Okay, so yes, you're looking at me like, what are you doing? But it's a work in progress. Just got to work with it. Get a little bit on her nostrils and a little bit underneath her nose here. Okay, all right, give her a little Hitler stash. All right, let's take care of that one first. Going in here, we're smoothing out those lines. That's creating depth, so it looks like her cheeks are coming out from her face. We're going in and we're blending in the shadow here. Getting in this dark area under her eyes. Okay, that's giving definition to her nose and her eyebrow ridge. Okay, going into there. We're getting definition, and then I'm going to blend in here. Okay, so starting to make her look like she's not flat. She's got some form, okay? But once again, the colors are not quite there yet. And I would say she needs a little bit more light on her face. So we're going to go in with our beige. We'll start with that. And I'm going to try and pick up some of these light areas in her cheeks. Same on the other side. And you know, I'm thinking maybe that's not bright enough. So I'm actually going to go in then with my straight white. I'm going to start adding in. Here I am just trying to brighten up those areas where I see light. You also notice that I just colored in her lips skin tone for now. That's where I'm going to leave it, and that will make it a little bit easier to fill in and blend in your other more pinky tones later. Okay, so now I'm going back in, blending, blending. Okay, it helps when you blend to really, you know, think about the direction that you're blending, not just going any kind. Okay. All right, so now that I'm looking at her face, I'm thinking I need a little bit more pinks and reds. So I see some of those underneath her eyes and the shadows. Her shadows are not quite brown. There's a little bit of pink and red. So I'm actually going to go for that reddish pink. Okay, so here we go. You're going to be alarmed, but we're going to add a little bit of that here, a little of that here, into there, and I see a little bit up here, a little bit down here. All right, blend it out. Don't be afraid of color. It's what gives it its sense of realism. Warming up those shadows. And I would, now that I look again, I see a little more over here. I'm actually going to mix in my brown with that. Blend it. Okay, and every time you add in shadow, you want to remember sometimes that means you've covered up your highlights. So every time you've added in shadow, you might have to go back with your white or your cream and re-add in those highlights because you've probably just covered them up. I'm just warming up her neck shadow so that it looks consistent with the coloring of her face. Okay, and I'm going to go back in with this for her chin. I want to make sure her chin looks like it is above her neck. I don't want it to look Also, you may notice after a while your fingers start to really get dirty and your blending might not be working out the way you want it. So don't be afraid to just take a break and wash your hands in between colors. Going and adding in those highlights again. Some white down here. Okay. Re-adding in those highlights where I darkened with that red. Okay, and I'll light a little more down here. Alright, so now for the fun part. I might need to go wash my hands soon. And my eyes are always going back and forth between my photograph and my drawing. I just always want to make sure that I'm checking in before I get too far ahead of myself. Alright, so I'm going to take a break and I'm going to wash my hands and I'll be right back.